Elliot Murphy tells us why he said goodbye to North America. I'm John Beaudin from Rock History Music. There were a lot of high hopes for Elliot Murphy in the 70s. But as you know, for every 1,000 artists, sometimes there's just one that kind of makes it. And sometimes the hype in the beginning is too much or kind of unfair. I was a big fan as soon as I heard him in the 70s. I had an older friend who introduced me to his first album, Aqua Show, and I fell in love. I loved his grittiness and his rawness and his lyrics and how he sang. I just loved the way he sang. I asked him, though, why he left North America and moved to Paris. The vibe in Paris, though, when you first got there, did you know right away? There's that thing where people say, I'm not sure what I'm looking for, but I'll know it when I find it. Well, tell me about your first reaction in 79. Let's go there.
I think that's a good, I didn't know what I was looking for, but I thought I was going to come to a little club in Paris with 300 people or something, This place, I'd never played here before. And when they booked my agency, at the time I was still with a pretty big agency called ICM, and they said, they want you to come to Paris and they're sending tickets and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then it was this place called La Palace, which was like, 1,500 people. And it was sold out. And I did 6 encores because I just didn't want to leave the stage. And I had not had that feeling in front of an audience like that who wanted more and more and more in a very long time. And something in me, it was one of those moments in my life where I just made the right decision. I said, there's something happening here and I got to go for it and I got to do it. Because I'm not the only artist, I think, that has happened to, or who could have had a European career. But luckily, I liked Europe. I lived in New York, so it wasn't that far to go. And I started coming more and more, and then it spread to Spain. And by the time I got to Spain, which was really interesting, and perhaps that's one of my best countries, Spain didn't have rock and roll while Franco was alive, while they had a fascist dictatorship there. So when I played there in '82, I was like the first wave of rock and roll. I was like the Beatles or the Stones, Italy too, we started playing in Italy. Sweden, we had some tremendous things happen up in Scandinavia too. But every opportunity I had in Europe, I followed it, I was willing to go there. I said, I can't just keep, hitting myself on the head trying to break again in America, when the interest is not really there. Mm-hmm. And I started producing my own albums with whatever limited budget I could put together and licensing in Europe. They call me now one of the pioneers of the independent artist movement, but it was just really survival if I wanted to get my music out. And because at that time Europe was kind of ahead of the game, people would license in each different country. You'd have a different label in France, a different one in Italy, different one, they were all. That's what I started doing and kind of had to learn about the music business,
What about you in the 80s?
The 80s were a tough time for me, certainly in America. Interesting, we're reissuing a couple of my 80s albums on vinyl. One of them, Party Girls and Broken Poets, which was done about '83. Before that, Murph the Surf, and Murph the Surf was still kind of the same 70s production values, and not those garbage can drums you talked about. But by '85, I did an album called Milwaukee with Jerry Harrison from the Talking Heads. He produced it. And there we triggered all the drums with the Linn drum machine, and they're enormous, although every hit sounds the same, which gets a little boring. So I didn't fit into that. The whole term singer-songwriter had become kind of a dirty word. In '77, the music business divided between punk and disco. Yeah. And luckily, I found this niche in Europe. I first played Paris in '79, and by 10 years later, I moved here. But in America, it just kept getting more and more difficult. In Europe, it kept getting better and better.
At one point in our interview, Elliot asked me, what kinds of people have you interviewed? He hadn't seen my YouTube channel yet. And we shared some names, and it turned out a lot of the people that I've interviewed, he knew, including Toto.
Interesting footnote for Toto. My second album, Lost Generation, was in LA, produced in LA by Paul Rothschild. And he had just brought this band from Louisiana up to record them. The guitar player was Sonny Landreth, and the lead singer was
Bobby Kimball.
Bobby Kimball, and Bobby Kimball sang background on my second album, and Sonny Landreth played guitar. It was his first, it was his first studio session ever. And when Paul asked him how much you want to get paid for this, Sonny said, "Can you pay my rent?" I think that was the greatest response of any musician. So about 10 years ago, Toto was playing in Paris. And I knew the promoter, and I went to the show, and I got talking to Steve Lukather, who is such a nice guy. He's just a sweetheart, great guy. And my son was with me, and my son was about 13, and he was playing the guitar. And I didn't go to the show. I opened for them. That's right, I opened for them. And I had my guitar there, and Gaspar, my son, had the guitar, and he was standing in the hallway passing by. And Steve Lukather passed by, and he was warming up on his guitar. And Steve said, "Hey, you play?" And Gaspar said, "Yeah." He said, "Let's play something." And Gaspar said, "Do you know Little Red Rooster?" and Steve said, "I think so." And they jammed on that in the hallway of this 20,000-seat arena where Toto was playing.
You know, that's another example of a band that's much bigger. It's still much, in spite of all those Grammys for Toto 4, much bigger in Europe. Much bigger.
Yeah, I think so still.
For more information on Elliot Murphy, go to elliottmurphy.com. There's a documentary that was made a few years ago called The Second Act of Elliot Murphy. You can stream it or download it. There are links in the description of this video. Thanks to all the folks who have bought our t-shirts. We appreciate that. We're expanding our channel, and we're raising some funds to do that, to buy better equipment. The links to our swag store in the description of this video. And also, if you want to volunteer for us, we're still looking for volunteers. Now listen, the criteria for volunteering is you need to be a self-starter. A few years ago, I left rock and roll to do jazz. I did jazz for like 6-7 years. Was quite successful at it because I like jazz music an awful lot. And when we ran those jazz websites, basically all our volunteers sent us stories or sent us ideas, and we worked with them. But you gotta be a self-starter. If you want to either be a guest on this program, do research, or write your own stories, make sure you contact us via the Facebook links. We've got a Facebook group. The links are in the description of this video. We'd love to work with you. And if you want to start a YouTube channel and you need a springboard, this is a great way to do it. We will help you get your name out there. I come from the school of the more people doing this, the better. Make sure you comment on our video, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos. I'm John Beaudin. This is Rock History Music.